So like in our previous project, we created our backend test API, and you could see some of my code over here that, remember, I had this MongoDB that was already existing, but you're going to see that the server, I turned on both things. So let me just save it. Now you can see it's updating. Nothing's going to happen here, but we have this app.use and we have this /API/user. This is the route. And then we created a route folder here. So the route is over here, and then we have the route. So you can see over here that there's a route, and essentially the route is just the user, the URL /API/user, and then we have /test here. So we're using a router, and then we put /test, and we say this is a function, which is actually called a controller, and we create a separate controller folder, and inside we have the user controller. Actually, the user controller is where the definition of the function would be, and this is test route being called. And now you can see that, I basically get that from the controllers, and then after that I export default router. I use it in my index using user router, and this is being imported from here. And now if you test it out, it was working in the back previous video. Now what I want to do is I want to create actual authentication for users when they I want to create an API that allows you to sign up for an account. To do that, for that particular purpose, what we'd have to do now is to first cross everything out, delete everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to my API folder, which is my backend, right? And in my backend, what I have to do is I have to go to my, see my models and then routes. So you can see route, and then we have user route. Now this is our user route. We have to create a separate brand new route for our authentication, because this is very important. So let's go into this file and we'll create an auth. So it's going to be called authentication, and obviously authentication is completely different from our user, because our user is a model. It's I'm going to show you how it looks like. So if you're watching the series, you know pretty well that it has the username, email, password, and the timestamps. But we have to create an API for this, and we have to create an authentication route which is completely separate from the user route, because this is just for getting users and all that. We're not going to keep it inside that. We're going to keep it separate. Okay, so now inside of this auth.route.js, what you want to do here is you want to first import express from express. All right, and then what you want to do here is you basically want to create that router. So to do that, it's pretty simple. You have const router, and then you say express.router, and now you have that router, right? And that router, normally this is the same thing like I did with the test API. So I created my router using express. Now I have to essentially I have to call my controller as well. But let's first say router dot we are trying to create an account, so that's basically post method. And in here we have to say, let's suppose the URL here would be so it would be slash so it would be essentially sign up. We're trying to create an account, so we'll say sign up /sign up, and for the controller it's going to be sign up. All right, and this controller we're going to have to right now import. And how we're going to actually create the controller first. So we go to the controller here. You see this controller folder. Inside here, you have to create user.controller was first the users, but now we're going to say auth.controller.js. Here we have the so we have the auth.controller.js file, right? And in here, you're going to have to create the definition for that function. So essentially, it's export sign up, right? So it's essentially export, let's suppose, const sign up, and then we have it's an async and await. All right, so async, and it's requiring a request and response. And normally right now I won't put anything else, so I'm just gonna go here, and what I'm gonna do is you could ignore that, and you could just say the request is coming from the the request is going from the client and the response is coming from the server. So we could say console.log will just have request dot body. So whatever request that the client will give will be displayed on the console screen, correct? So this is what we need. Okay, and then we could just simply close this like that. So this is our sign up controller, but right now we have to use it, right? So to use it, it's pretty simple. All you got to do is import it. So import sign up from controllers, and you can see controller / auth.controller. Now you can see that auth.controller, so it's basically auth.controller.js. So make sure you have the for just make sure you don't have this error. And now you essentially are using that sign up here, but actually you gotta have to export this. So we have export default, and we have router. So once we have this exported, right, now we could actually use this, and we could use this in our index.js file, which is right here. So remember that we had our existing APIs. So you could see this was an old API route, which was /API/user, and then we have user router. Yeah, this is for something else. And on the bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to create one for our specific need. So what I'm going to say is app.use, and what we're going to say is /API, but this case we're going to have an authentication, say auth, all right? And what it's basically using is the user router. And I have to import this auth router, so I'll show you. So right now it doesn't exist. So auth router, it's like this. So where's this auth router? We have to import it on the top. So over here you have user router, but we're gonna have import auth router from route /auth.route.js. So my copilot is pretty intelligent and it knows everything. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have that pre-filled, and you can see now we have that imported, and we could use auth router. I just called it auth router, and we could use that API in that part. So this is gonna actually work for us. Great. So since we got all of that out of the way, we'll have to test our API route. So how do we actually test it? Because right now it's just gonna give request.body. So there's so many tools out there. Like suppose right now in my extensions, if you saw my older series, I actually use one called Thunder Client. You could install it. It's pretty easy to use. It's right here. It should be right here. And I have some old API calls that I've done before, but you could actually create a new request, and then since like in the get URL, you essentially the API is going to be localhost, right? So suppose right now if we go over here, index.js, and it says /API/user, and then this is /API/auth. If we know that this is 3000, it's in the local port, right? So essentially you could go here into this, and you could say localhost port 3000 /API/user/test, and this was our API. I mean, if my server is on, okay, it crashed. For some reason, my server crashed because of some issue. Okay, it says over here, let's see from the top. So it was working, and then after that it says /API/auth, and then we have auth router is not defined. So it's in the index.js. Let's go over here, and you can see auth router. Okay, it's not being active. Let's see. So routes /auth/auth.routes. 1 minute. Maybe it's auth. Yeah. 1 minute. So back in this, so we have auth.routes.js. Oh, okay. So essentially what I had to do was auth.route.js. So let's just keep it auth.route.js like that. And I should recommend keeping that as well. So this user one should be just 1s. This is an old one in the past, but it should be corrected now. So now you could see, now this should work, and it shouldn't complain now. It should work. Yep, it's working. And you could go to the backend, and essentially this was the test. It was just the test called, but what we want now is the /API/auth. Okay, and then inside the auth we have this thing, request.body. So remember, like I told you, we need something like Thunder Client to do that purpose. So we'll go here and it's a post request. And then over here, we actually have to put something in it. So I'm getting this URL here and we're going to have to change it up. So let's go back here and paste this, and it's API/auth. All right. And then we have nothing after that. So essentially, if you look over here, so we have so this is user route.js. We have auth.route, and we have /signup. So we have to give one more slash. So right after this, we have sign up. Okay, so this is your complete URL. You put in the post. You go to the headers, and the headers are okay. We'll leave it as it is, but we have to go to the body and make sure we go and select JSON. And over here, let's give some authentication to this. So let's suppose we have the username, and we'll set to, let's suppose, Iris, and then we'll have comma, we have email, and we'll say Iris at gmail.com, just sample. And then on the password, we could say my name. All right. So now this is, you can see that there's no comma at the end. And if you send this, if I send this request, it's processing. And after some time, okay, it's taking longer than normal. I don't know why. Okay, we get undefined. The reason why we're getting undefined is that we don't actually have it allowed. I mean, we don't have the server allowed to accept JSON input. All right, this is in JSON input trying to go to the server, and we haven't allowed it. So we have to go to the index.js and allow it. How to allow it? So you just go to the index.js, and right after, you can see right after the connection that you're happening, you could just have this app which is initiated, and then you could say app.use, and then you could say express.json. All right, all you got to do is that, and it shouldn't give you a problem anymore. So again, it restarted the server, but if we go back to the request, the correction was forcibly closed by a peer. Now try to send it again, and it should now, since it worked, so let's see. Yep. And it's processing for some reason because we don't have any kind of response there. But right now you could see on the console, you see, remember that we had to put something on the console. In our controller, we said console.log request, whatever the bot had in the request, all throw it out, and we have username, email, and password. Great. So that means our API is working, but this is not the right way to actually do the thing. I actually need to not do it here, but I actually want to store it somewhere on a database. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first turn off this. So just leave it as it is. It's just gonna do the thing. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to destructure this request.body, right? We're not gonna log it out. So we're gonna say, so essentially what we're gonna do is, we know that there's so we know actually there's something which is email, username, email, and password. So we could destructure it using this operator, and we could say username, email, and password from the request.body. And what we could say is essentially we could put that inside of an object. So we could say const user. All right, we could say new user is equal to new user. And where is this user? This is our model. And essentially we're giving the username, email, and password to it. Now this model was part of our models. If you look over here, this one, user.model. So just bring it up here somewhere. Yeah, let me just add it here. Okay, so over here you can see that this is the model. We have user schema, username, email, and password, and we want to use this. So it's pretty simple. All you got to do is you just have to import it. So if I press Control and space, yeah, it says over here, press this enter. and it basically imports the model from the user.model, and this is called .js. All right. Now you have the model imported and you're creating the model. So basically you used the schema, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to save it. So we say new user.save. Now this is a function, but the thing is it's going to take some time using internet, so we have to use await keyword. Await is saying like, don't go to the next line until all of this is done. It might be taking some time, so we have to use asynchronous for that. So we put async here, async. Wow. Right after that, once it's saved, you got everything done, and you go to actually response.json, and you could just say new user. All right, so let's see how this is going to work now. Let's go back to our Thunder client, and over here this was turned off, and I'm assuming like now everything is running, and let's just press enter. Now you can see when I automatically pressed it, it says 200 okay, and it will give us a response from our backend. This is our user face. Basically, this is the thing that the user could see. All right, and we could see that it gave us a JSON response, and it has our name, email, and password. It also created separate new things like this ID field, which MongoDB creates automatically. The created at and updated at time zone timestamps that I said that the user model had. So remember that in that model that we created, user model, and inside we had timestamps true. This is automatically creating those two fields, extra ones, and this extra underscore v. So just check this out in MongoDB. 100% it would be there. So we could just quickly go mongodb.com/atlas, and we have to check it out. So just sign in. Okay, and you can see just log in with your Google Auth, and after some time you'll see it. All right, so this is awesome. This is working really well, but you'll see a problem here, and I'll show you that problem. Right now it's in the database, and you could go here, and then it's gonna go here, browse collections. So go here, burn state, and in here, you remember that that user.model, we had this mongoose.model, and then we have the user capital, and then we had no s. Remember I said MongoDB will create that s automatically, so it's going to be lowercase users, and that s is added, and you could see this is saved on the database, correct? But the thing is that the password is also visible, and you don't want this because your admins of MongoDB could also view this, and it's not a good practice. You should hash or encrypt it. So we're going to use something to encrypt this password now. So let's go back here, and and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try to encrypt this password. The way we could do this is we could go to the auth.controller.js, and let's just try to open up this. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're in that server. Remember that server is actually in the root folder. It's not inside the /API. So just turn that off. All right, and in here you could use some package which is npm i. It's called BcryptJS, and if you use this, it's just going to install it. And once it's installed, you could use again the same thing, which is npm run dev, and this is going to run your backend again. Okay, we're using bcrypt.js to hash our password. So all you got to do up here on the top is import bcrypt from bcrypt. Okay, so import BcryptJS. You could use any library to hash it, but we'll use this one. Okay, and after that, once we have this imported, we could use the password. So remember this, we're getting the request, but for the password, you could say const hashed password is equal to, and we have we use bcryptjs dot hash sync, and we have password and 10. This is 10 rounds. So basically it's a salt that's gonna add some extra things with our password, and it's gonna encrypt it in a hash format. And bcrypt.js is automatically using await, so we don't have to use the await keyword. It's so it's gonna wait until all of it's complete before going to the next line. Important thing here is that we need async, and we already did that. Now what we have now is a hashed password, right? So for the password field here, we'll use hashed password right there. So now it's saying you're going to use that hash password and you're going to save the user. Awesome. So this user is being saved. But one thing that we could see is that, you know, I would now go here and, you know, create another. So let's just do the same thing again. But well, I'm going to get an error. The reason I'm getting an error is that my model says that my username and my email and my, okay, only my username and email should be unique. So it's not gonna allow me to do this. Let's just add 1 and the password would be the same and send it. All right. So now you can see that it's sent and you can see that the password is all hashed. Right now I'm receiving it. I'm not supposed to receive the password. All right. The user shouldn't receive it. So we're going to add the logic to not add it. And normally you would go to this, click on this, and you'd see it refreshes it. Okay, it doesn't. Okay, so I clicked on MERN state and it refreshed. You know, better ways to just go from there and refresh it. But you can see over here that I'm getting a hash password that's hashed in the database, which is amazing. And you already know that the password is ours, so don't try to hack me. All right, so now the next thing here is we're gonna do the next part, which is actually going to the model, which is user.model.js. Now we're going to go back to auth.controller, and you can see that the password is hashed, but we're going to have to, you know, throw out an error if suppose I'm using the same email. Like I told you before, like suppose if I try to redo this again with the same email, I'm getting an error, but I'm not understanding what's the error, right? The user should know something about this. And the only way you're understanding the error is through the console here. And you could see that the server turned off, and you could see that it told you that, you know, there's actually a duplicate key error collection. And, you know, it's saying there's duplicate username, so you shouldn't do that. And then it turned off. We don't want that. We have to fix this up. So the reason where we could actually fix this is go to the auth.controller and add this in a try catch. In a try catch statement, which is this, we could actually put, we don't need this for now. So I'm just going to delete this line. I don't want that response. And I'm going to put this inside here. So I'm going to say, try await new user dot save. And then after that, if it's saved, you could add a response dot status telling the user that, you know, it's added successfully. So you could say 201. And then you could say JSON and send that the user created successfully. All right. I normally use, 1 minute. I'm just trying to make it consistent with double quotes. And now you could see that the user created successfully. And in the catch, you could just catch the error and say, you know, console.log, and then you have error. All right. So this is how it should work for us. And now if we see this, we have, okay, since the server is off, I believe. Yeah, I'm gonna refresh it. Okay. 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 Send again. Okay, I'm still getting this issue. All right. So what we could do is we have error.message. So let's see now. Yeah, it's automatically restarting. Okay, it's still complaining about the server is running on port and then duplicate error. It says over here, and it doesn't give any response back. So we're going to go back to the auth.controller, and we see over here response. Oh yeah, console. We're consoling the error. The better way to do this was actually respond it to the server, and you say response dot error, and then see this. Okay, so let's see this. Okay, so actually this is not the right code for it. Yeah, and it crashed automatically. Response.error is not, it's not that. Let me just fix that up. response.status. Let's see. GitHub will help me. Response.status 409. And then we have this. So let's just give this. All right. So this shouldn't give us any kind of problems. And let's see, the server should be automatically on now. Yep. And let's cross this. And okay, so you can see that they're giving you a message and says index, key pattern, key value. It doesn't make sense, but you know, you kind of understand that you're getting a message here. It's not actually impacting that. So let me just fix that up later on. I'm gonna say, you know, like a message I could say is like, instead of the error, you put the message here. Let's see if this fixes it up. All right, so there's the message. So we have duplicate key error correction and, you know, duplicate key. Perfect. Now we have this, but again, this is not the best way to display. We managed to create our API, and we use try and catch to handle this. But what I want to do is I want to actually create a middleware and a function to handle all this error logic instead of having to do it in a try and catch. And it's a better practice since I'm not going to overuse try and catch over and over for more and more API routes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to my API folder, and inside of that I have to go to the index.js. You're going to scroll down, and you're going to actually create you're going to create that middleware. So the middleware is going to be like this, app.use, and we're going to have the error, we have the request, we have the response, we have next for the next middleware. And over here you can see that, okay, so we have this, and inside here, what we could do is we could first have our code. So essentially, if I have const and I say status code, all right, and this says error.status code, if it's by default, you know, keep it as it is, or just give it as a 500. So suppose my error, you know, it throws an error like, you know, by default it gives like a 500 server error, but if the error doesn't happen somehow, the user server doesn't give any kind of error, by default I manually do it with 500, so it's going to be handled. Same goes for my message. So I could say message, whatever the default message was, display it, but if it's not existing, just call it an internal server error. Okay, so that's great. And now what we're going to do is we're going to return response dot status. All right, and we're going to put the status code in here, that default one, and we're going to have .json, and inside of this JSON we're going to put extra information. Let's give a success parameter, and we'll say that the success is false, and this is all for the user, right? So the user would see all this stuff. So status code, essentially you could see that status code would be the same as the status code that you're giving. So in ES6, it doesn't allow you to do any additional things. And for the message, you could just keep it as the message. All right. So once all of this is done, you could close this out like this. So like that. And right after this, you could now close the part out like this. Okay. So where's one thing is missing here, and I guess it's the round bracket, like this. Okay, so we're missing a round bracket here, and it's got to be, yeah, it's this extra. Okay, so now everything looks fine. Okay, so now this is our middleware. We can format document, and it just looks really nice. This is our middleware that we've created. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use in the auth.controller.js file. All right, so in this auth.controller.js, what we're going to do is we're going to put it on the top. So you can see over here, request, response, and we have one more, which is next. All right. And you could see that this is going to call that index.js one. Now, the thing is, over here in the catch, instead of, you know, throwing anything like that, we want the middleware to handle it. So we say next, and we put the error inside of it. So as simple as that, and we're basically handling it. This is gonna use all of our data, and everything should work. So let's go here, and let's see this. And now you can see success is false, status code 500, and then the message is here. Just a better way to handle the error. So yeah, that works. But the thing is, we want to use custom errors. How do we add custom errors to our application? For custom errors, I would recommend going to API, and inside of that, we create a new folder. So over here, and we call that name is utils. And inside that folder, we create a file which is called error.js. Okay, so inside the error.js file, so what we do is we create our function, which is an error function. And this is gonna handle manual. We're gonna create manual errors ourselves, custom errors. So error handler, and we put an equal, and this is we require a status code. Every error has a status code, and every error has a message. All right, we don't want to give a response, so this is perfect. And inside of this, what we could do is we could say that we're going to create a new error from the constructor provided by JavaScript, which is error constructor, and we put the message that we customly gave inside of that. And sorry, we could do that, but the way I'm not going to use any parameter here, and I'm going to give it like this. So error.statusCode is equal to the status code that you provided in the parameter, and the error.message is the message that you provided in the parameter. And you could either throw the error, or you could return the error, and I'll return it, and I'll close the body here. So this is our error, and we could now use this error instead of in the auth.controller.js. For this particular purpose, you're gonna have to import the error on the top. So over here, you could say import, which is error handler. So we say error handler, and we could say from, you can see over here, suggestion is coming from /utils/error. So it's gonna get that path, and now you could essentially use that error handler here. And you could say next, inside of it, you could say error handler, and inside you could just give like a 500 message, 500 status code, and error.message. You could just put whatever message you want, or by default you could give any message you want, and it would basically be helpful for later on in our application. Right now I just created it, but it's going to be extremely useful when the application grows, and you'll have custom errors. Like suppose there's a password that you shouldn't make it above 8. I mean, you can make a password less than 8 characters. That's actually not an error, but you could make it as an error using this code, right? So that you formed it, but right now you could just see that you could test it out using the Thunder client here. And you could see right now, everything is being triggered perfectly, but you can right now just use the existing error. So let's just cross all of this parameter out, and we're just using the default error from that, and it's basically being handled by our middleware, and that's pretty much it.